guys, and welcome to another one of my everyday makeup drawer review videos. I do these about once a month, going through and looking at the products that I had put in my everyday makeup drawer, giving you guys my thoughts on all of those. And then we do a secondary video where we go and shop my stash for the following month. So you are looking right now at the products that were inside of my everyday makeup drawer for the majority of the month of August and a little bit here into September. And if you've been following this series on my channel for any length of time, you know that I like to do themes for the Shop My Stash sort of everyday makeup drawers. Last month's theme was products I've forgotten about. So these were products that I hadn't used in a while, couldn't really remember how I felt about them. And this was in large part to help refamiliarize me with a few products that I needed to have better opinions on going into some upcoming declutter videos. So let's go ahead and start at the front and work our way back. Quite a few concealers up here in the front. This one is from Kaja. This is their Don't Settle concealer. This is in the shade 01. This is a very lightweight, liquidy concealer. It is going to be sort of lighter medium coverage. It blends out so easily though, and I feel like isn't very drying under my skin. If you are looking for a full coverage concealer, this is probably not one that you would particularly like, but if you like a more lightweight concealer, this is one that I think you might really enjoy. It's one I have enjoyed quite a bit this last month, so that's going back in my collection. This ColourPop No Filter concealer was really separated, so I worked really hard to kind of mix all of this back together so it was back to a point that I could use. This is the shade Fair 06, and ultimately what I've decided is that it's just lighter than I like. And so every time I put this on, I felt like I was kind of getting reverse raccoon eyes. I know a lot of people really like a bright under eye. I'm just not one of them. I prefer something that is a little bit more along the lines of this. So this is the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in the shade C3. I actually prefer something along this line, a little bit more like my skin tone, because I feel like it covers up better and hides more of the blue undertone. I feel like when I use these really bright ones, I almost have to reach for peach corrector to make them work because I don't feel like they cover up the blueness a lot. I feel like they just lighten the darkness in the corner of my eyes as opposed to conceal them. So I definitely prefer both the undertone and depth of the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define, and I really do like this concealer. I forgot how much I did like it in terms of a more full coverage matte concealer. I think it's really nice. I don't know as if I'm going to hang on to this one. I might end up picking up a different shade to try the formula again because I don't really feel like I got a good sense for the formula because, to be honest, I just didn't care for the color. I also had in the Lancome, let's see, what is this? Long Lasting Under Eye Concealer. This is in the shade 100, I'm assuming Porcelain. This one is a shade that I definitely prefer. It's a little bit, like I said, closer to my skin tone, has a really nice undertone to it. This is a really lovely concealer. I feel like it doesn't make my under eyes super dried out. It lasts really well. It doesn't do a ton of creasing. Obviously, Lancome is not cruelty free, so I will use this up and that will be it out of my collection. And then the final concealer type thing in here was from Julep. This is the Perk It Up Under Eye Treatment Brightener. And I put this in here because I really wasn't sure how I would want to use it. And what I've realized is that this is less of a concealer and more of a sort of light brightening shade that has a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of hydration to it. It doesn't impart a whole lot of coverage, if any, but what you end up with is something that is very hydrating, almost emollient, and can go underneath your eyes at the end of a day and really start to, there we go, really start to bring a concealer back to life that is looking very dry and cakey. So to me, this is probably pretty comparable to an Hourglass product that is very similar to this. I can't think of the name. I'll put it up here on the screen, but it's one I've always been interested in because they don't bill it as a concealer. They build it almost as something to kind of save and refresh your under eye towards the end of a day. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. And so I do think this has a place in my collection. This This is the little Flesh highlighter in the shade Startle. If you saw my favorites for the last month, you will know that this was in there. I think this is a gorgeous, almost like glossy, wet looking highlighter. I absolutely love it. I think it is stunning. Used the absolute heck out of this month. So this was a really nice sort of rediscovery in terms of how much I enjoyed this highlighter. This is from Stila. This is their Glazen highlighting gel in the shade Fair. This is sort of a potted, creamy texture. They say jelly, but it really is more of a cream. This is one that is really pretty, but by the time you blend it out, it's actually less intense, and it's gonna look very intense here. But what I found was as I blended this out on my skin, I definitely got less glow than that Flesh one. It's pretty, but it's also kind of messy. So I don't know as if it is my favorite highlighter. It's definitely not a fail highlighter or a fail highlighter formula. Once it locks into place, it doesn't budge. But I don't know if I'm like in love with it either. And then this little Stila eyeliner, this was one of their cushion gel eyeliners in Smoky Quartz ink. It's completely dried out. I went to go use this one day and there's absolutely nothing coming out of this at all. So I am gonna go ahead and declutter this guy from my collection. Let's go back a row here. There is a new mascara in my drawer. I used up my CoverGirl Exhibitionist mascara, and I did have a backup of the Superhero mascara sitting in a little basket in my closet, so I went ahead and made the decision to pull this in. Clump Crusher, I feel like I will probably pull in the backup I have of this here in about a week's time frame. It's almost gone. And I also went ahead and pulled in this sample size of the Ilia mascara. I do really like how this one makes my lashes look. So I really enjoyed the wand on this because you've got the shorter end that kind of applies a lot of volume, and then you've got the section with more bristles, which actually kind of brushes out your lashes. I do really like the effect that this gives, but this is so strongly scented of roses. Like, it's really intense. Like, it is way too strongly fragranced, and every time I put it on my eyes, I'm just like, ooh, wow, so much scent. Completely unnecessary. No one needs scented mascaras. So I don't know if it's just because it's in a smaller size and maybe the fragrance got more concentrated, or if the full size is like this, but it does mean I probably would refrain from purchasing a full size of those, even though I think my lashes look nice in it. And then I had two liners in here, which I have to be honest, I completely forgot about and didn't reach for at all. One is from Almay. It is a liquid liner in the shade Raisin, and it is a felt tip applicator, and it's a really pretty color. It's like a lighter sort of murky plum color. This one is a Maybelline Master Precise Ink Metallic. This is in the shade Stellar Sand, and this one's really cool and sparkly. So I am gonna actually go ahead and leave both of these in because I do want to remember to play with them. I did play around quite a bit with all of these liquid shadows, so I think I'm gonna wait to do any decluttering with these, with the exception of one that we'll talk about here, but until we get to my liquid eyeshadows here in a minute. But this is Lid Lingerie, the shade Nightglow. I really liked this shade. It's a very cool toned, smoky taupe shade. Gorgeous. And then another taupey shade that has a lot of glitter particles in it is from Wet n Wild. This is the shade Cashmere Love. This was, I think, my favorite out of all of the ones that they released. And you can see it's a little bit more of a bronze, and it definitely has a lot more shine to it. This is a liquid catsuit. This was Gotho Glam. This is the shade Pure Intention. It's just a very light sort of pinky pearl shade. It worked well as an inner corner highlight. I don't know as if I feel like it is like super remarkable inside of my collection now. This is another liquid catsuit in the shade Shells and Whistles. This one doesn't have any glitter in it. It's just a metallic, and it's a beautiful rose gold shade. Super pigmented. That one works really well as just an all over single lid shade as well. And then one I'm just gonna go ahead and make the decision to get rid of now. I feel like the formula has gone off on it, and it's not that old. It's from Catrice. It's the Liquid Metal Cream Eyeshadow. The day that I tried to work with this, it was just flaking and being really weird all over my eyes, and it still swatches okay. It was blending out really strange. It was getting kind of patchy and sheer, and I don't know, like something about this just did not work well with my eye. So I feel like the formula has started to go off. So I know I'm gonna declutter this one. I'm just gonna do that one right now. And then last but not least, this is from Bare Minerals. This is one of their shadow quickie sticks. They don't even make these anymore. And I was expecting this shade to be like not working anymore, and it actually blends like a dream. It's a strange formula. It's actually kind of cooling on the eyes. It reminds me of the Marc Jacobs shadow sticks in that respect, but those shadow sticks from Marc Jacobs actually dried out on me really quickly. And that one's actually going strong. All right, so now we come to some primers that were here in the back. This is the Dr. Brandt Primer, Luminizer Primer. This one is really nice. This one's really hydrating. It's very lotiony, and I could see myself reaching for this on winter days where I feel like I need both a subtle glow, because it's definitely not the glowiest primer I've ever used, but I really want a lot more hydration. So I do think this one is nice, and I can see myself keeping this one through my next declutter. Another illuminizing product, this is from AOA Studios. This is their Wonder Skin Illuminating Primer. This is $1, which is absolutely crazy. This one is a lot more lightweight and a lot more liquidy, not quite as hydrating, but it is a lot more glowy, if you can see that there. This one really packs a wallop. It feels really nice on the skin though. If I were to put this in higher end packaging, I think people would be shocked that this was the product. And then final primer I had back in there, this is from Origins. This is their Pore Perfecting Cooling Primer with Willow Herb. So this is one that is a mousse, and it is incredibly cooling. Like, it feels really cold on my hand right now. And so it's this mousse, and you kind of blend it out. I put way too much on my hand just then. That's part of the problem, is you end up with a lot more than you need sometimes. But it ends up blending out to be just a moisturizing, slightly smoothing primer. It does smell really good. It smells kind of like lemonade. It's nice, but it is kind of strange. I'm not deeply, madly in love with this. I like it, but I'm not in love with it, if that makes sense. So I will probably have to stack this up against some of the other primers in my collection, because this is something that is easily donatable versus some other products in my collection. So we will see whether or not this makes it through a declutter. All right, so now we are looking at my sort of face section. Let's go ahead and pull out two things from the back that you can't see. One is this little Makeup Forever blush trio. I will put the names down below because I can't remember them and I don't want to pull them out. But these two were matte, sort of a pink and a peach, and then I had this really pretty sort of shimmery peach down there. I did wear all of these blushes and I did really enjoy them. I think they blend really well. They're very spring type blushes. Like, when I look at this trio, I'm like, spring. But I did enjoy this. Revolution, this is a blush palette, and it actually has sort of 4 highlighters at the top and then 4 blushes down below. You know, these aren't bad blushes and highlighters. I just found myself like not super motivated to reach for this, and I don't really know why. Like, it's pretty. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But I found myself reaching for other blushes and other highlighters most of the month, and I really had to force myself to reach for this. So that kind of tells me something about my real love of this palette, or just attachment to it. I usually talk about foundations first, but I feel like they're holding up all these products. So let's go ahead and talk about these down here first. I did have a face powder down here. This is the L'Oreal. This is the Maybelline Fit Me Set and Smooth Powder 125. This one I feel like it's just starting to go off. I've got this really strange hard pan here, and I just felt like I wasn't getting picking up that much of this product. This used to be one of my favorite powders because it was smoothing. It didn't look heavy or cakey, and I still really thought the powder was nice, but I just am getting the sense that this is turning on me, so I do think it's time to go ahead and chuck this one. This is a Laura Geller Baked, Balance, and Brighten Foundation. I did not use this once, and that probably says a lot about how I'm feeling about powder foundations right now. I don't like to set my makeup with powder foundations. I find like that's just more coverage than I want, but I'm also not reaching for powder foundations either. So I don't know about this one. In terms of bronzers, I had two. One is a very old Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil bronzer. This is the lighter tone. They have changed both the formula and the packaging of these. I do not have that newer one. This is nice. Like, I reached for this quite a lot this month. It's a nice bronze shade that's not too warm. It's matte without being like chalky or strange. I'm not in love with it the way that I am other bronzers in my collection. This one didn't even make it into my top 10. And then the other one I had was from ColourPop. This is the bronzer shade in Private Party. This one looks like it would be way too dark for me. It's more of a glowy bronzer though, and I feel like the tone is a little bit lighter if you use a fluffier brush with it. In terms of blush, I was playing around with this butter blush. This is the shade Plum Rose, and I really like it. It's very light, so if you don't have light skin, fair to light skin, I don't think this would work for you, but I found it to be just such a natural nudie blush on me. I really like it. I like the texture. It's one I feel like I need just a hint of color, but not a ton. That's what I reach for this. So I did enjoy that one quite a bit. Let's see, I had brought in this ColourPop matte blush. It's just a really pretty sort of peachy rose blush. This is really nice. It's a matte blush, which is not my favorite formula. Got some Lorac blushes here. I had the shade Tinge, which I did reach for quite a bit. This is matte as well. And I feel like it's just, I don't know, there's something about this Lorac formula that I like just a little bit more than the ColourPop. So that's the shade Tinge. It's just a very light tinge of pink that's also got a lot of nude to it. And then we've also got a deeper mauve shade. This is Chroma. This is a beautiful sort of berry mauve color, and I'm swatching very heavy-handed right now. Obviously, I would have to lighten that up quite a bit. And then I've got more of a medium pink shade. This is probably my least favorite. This is the shade Spectra. I just don't wear these sort of medium toned like bubblegum pinks that often. And then final blush that was in there, this is the Maybelline Fit Me blush in, let's see, which one is this? Pink Rose. Also sort of a light bubblegummy sort of pink shade. Wasn't one that I was reaching for a ton. I think I only tried this once this month. So I doubt, I'm doubting whether or not these pinky tone blushes are going to make it through my next declutter. We shall see. In terms of highlight, I had two that were super blinding and two that were a little more natural. I reached for the Lorac ones probably more than these two. This is the shade Starlight, which is a very sort of light yellowy white shade. Super pretty. And then this one is more pinky toned. This is Moonlight. And these are just so finely milled and just blend into the skin so well. And they just look really pretty and natural. Like, I remember why I liked these highlighters as much as I did this month. And then I also have this in from Makeup Revolution. This is their strobe highlighter in Lunar. It's a little bit more of a icy purple one. This one is a lot more intense and a lot more metallic, if you can see that there. It's nice, but I don't know how often I'm gonna reach for an icy lavender highlight. And then I also had the Maybelline Master Chrome. This is the Molten Rose Gold shade. This one is pretty close to just my skin color when I buff it out. And so it's pretty, but it's definitely not a highlight that is lifting on my skin. I definitely feel like it's more, I don't know, my skin tone basically is the best way of saying that. Maybe we'll put it here so you can see the shade better. Hard sometimes in this lighting to show these shades. So that is the rose gold shade here. It's pretty. I also don't know as if this one is gonna make it through. I may end up just keeping the other Master Chrome, or I may not keep either of them. I'm not entirely sure yet. Highlighter declutter is going to be a bit of a conundrum this year. I feel like I'm kind of torn on a number of different highlighters. All right, so I had 4 foundations in here that I was trying to make my mind up about. I was also testing a ton of foundations this month. Yeah, I feel like I just was in foundation overload. I have a couple of solid opinions though here. So one, this Fiona Styles matte finish foundation, I do remember why I liked this one so much. I have the shade 01. It's more of a natural finish, and it's probably why I like it, is that it doesn't look very matte or very heavy. I really feel like this is a natural finish foundation, and every time I wore this, I just felt like it looked really natural on my skin. So I did like this one quite a bit. I also did like this Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude. So this is their lighter foundation. I would say this gives sort of light medium coverage. I hate the packaging on this. Hate, that is a strong word, and I totally stand by it. It's very lightweight, very serum-like, blends into the skin beautifully, looks like second skin. So I do really enjoy this foundation quite a bit for those sort of light makeup days. This is from Buxom. This is the Show Some Skin Weightless Foundation, light to medium coverage, SPF 30. This one almost comes off a bit more like a liquidy, I'm gonna say tinted moisturizer is almost how I'm thinking about this more. In fact, as I put this back in my drawer, because I do think I want to hang on to this one, I'm going to put this in with my BB creams because I feel like I'm going to reach for this more if I think about it in terms of less about foundation. I did find that I had to set it just a smidge. It doesn't completely set down, but it was nice, and I really feel like I had gotten very little use out of this. So that's that. In terms of this Hourglass stick foundation, guys, I didn't even use this once. I've got to leave this in for one more round. I need to make up my mind about it because I feel like I've got a lot of foundations at this point, and this is one that I could easily sanitize and give away. Of all of the ones that I have in my collection, this is one that I feel like was a little finicky, as I remember. So I need to continue to test some of the foundations that I recently purchased and then leave this in here for the next month. I honestly think I'm not going to pull any other foundations for this drawer next month because I want to get through testing the ones that I have in my little testing drawer, and I really want to spend some time with this Hourglass one. So I'm not planning on pulling any other foundations for the month of September. All right, so now we're looking at my eyeshadows and lip products from this last month. Had the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. This is a really neutral palette. The shadows are good. Some of them are not great. Some of them are really lovely. Don't know if I'm going to end up keeping this one though. I've always said it's my favorite out of the chocolate bar palettes. I really like the cool tone shades in here. I love this sort of mid-toned steely gray color. But I really struggle with some of the other shades in here in terms of performance. Like this purple is not the best. This sort of teal shade seems to have gone off slightly. Like I don't feel like I'm getting quite the sort of teal out of it. It's looking more black, so I don't know if just it's gone off. I don't know. I'm torn on this one, guys. I used to love it, but I feel like my love has moved on. So we'll see. Like I said, as I look at these palettes in here, I don't think there's any palette that I'm just going to straight up declutter after this month. I want to see them in terms of my larger collection, but I would say this one's on the chopping block. This is another one I think is on the chopping block. This is the Lime Crime Venus palette. I did a number of different looks out of this palette this month, and with the exception of this coral and this shade Shell, I felt like a lot of the looks that I got out of here turned out very similar to Monard Renaissance. This shade Shell is a really bright, lovely coral with a lot of gold in it, and then that coral, matte coral shade actually reminds me a lot of the corals that are coming out in palettes nowadays. I just don't know if I need this and the Modern Renaissance, so I'm thinking about passing this guy on. This is the Autumn Rains palette. This is by Sydney Grace. This was her single palette that had a mirror up here at the top. I really love a lot of these shades as solo shades. Like I love this Wondrous Night shade. It's like this silvery taupe color. I love this green down here. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Even this sort of red berry shade down here is absolutely gorgeous. The pigmentation is just like insanely good, and I really liked this sort of yellow toned brown shade quite a bit as well. I think what I'm realizing though is that I never feel like I have all the colors that I want in order to make this look work. And so I had an amazing epiphany this last month, which is that these are magnetized in there. And so I can actually use a magnet, at least in theory, I did this once, to start to lift these up. I don't know if you can see that. It's gonna take sort of a depotting tool and a magnet, but I can actually pop out every single one of these shades. And so that is what I'm going to do. I may hang on to this palette for travel purposes because I do think it's a nice palette. So I'm just gonna take all the shadows in here and then just go put them into my single shadow collection. This little e.l.f. quad that had a lot of cool toned mattes in here, I didn't even reach for it once. I kept grabbing for it and then not reaching for it and then putting it back. And I said I wasn't gonna declutter anything straight out of this collection, but I do think I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one on. I don't see myself using this as an essential part of my collection. White Peach palette. So there's so many shades in here that I really enjoy. I love this Peach Smoothie, this Sweet Fig. I love Fuzzy. I like the Peach Suede. I like all of the matte shades in here quite a lot. I tend to find these shimmer shades a little lackluster, and have to be honest, I don't love the color combination in here. So I think this is probably one that's not going to make it through my declutter, and I'm probably gonna just make sure that I have a couple of these types of shades inside of my singles collection, and then I will feel 100% okay with passing this guy on. I'm kind of thinking the same thing about this Urban Decay Vice palette. I played around with this month. I do feel like it's finally getting old enough that the shadows are just starting to change a little bit. This was my favorite of the Vice palettes that they put out because I felt like they had great mattes. They had some really fun sort of jewel berry tones, some really fun cool tone shades to make a smoky eye. I really loved this palette. It got a lot of love and use from me, but I feel like the shades have just started to go. So I will probably end up decluttering this one, but similarly, there's a couple shades in here I want to see if they're in my singles collection. And then I've got a couple of singles down here. This is the shade Nutty from Wet n Wild. I used this once. I feel like I probably have this shade 1,000 times over. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this guy now. This e.l.f. long-lasting lustrous eyeshadow. This is in Toast. It's a gold shade, and unfortunately it has just started to dry out quite a bit. It is really crumbly and isn't nearly as impactful as it used to be. So I also think I'm going to chuck this guy. And then this is from Catrice. This is their Aquafresh Highlighting Eyeshadow. This is a gel formula, but it's white, and it packs quite a wallop in the inner corner in terms of just bright and white, and it looks really pretty underneath the brow bone as well. It's a little more sheer, but it's really shiny. I don't know as if this is worth keeping because I don't know as if I'm going to just pull this out for an inner corner or a brow bone highlight on its own, but it is a nice formula. All right, and now we're looking at lipsticks. So last month I made the decision to just pull in brights into my drawer. So this is Velvet Ribbon from Lisa Eldridge. Beautiful red. I absolutely love this shade, love the formula. Everything about the Lisa Eldridge lipsticks just called to me. So that was fun to play with. I had also pulled in this deeper berry shade called Rouge Berry. This is a satin formula from Flower Beauty. That's gorgeous. This is one that actually looks really pretty, sort of almost like a stain if you just kind of shear it out. I did that a couple times this month. This is the shade Gin Fizz. This is a really bright pink from Amuse Bouche by Bite, and I really like that sort of purpley pink shade. Gorgeous. This is Lacquered Strawberry from L'Oreal Color Reshines. This one is also a lot of fun to play with. It's more of a true watermelon pink. And then this was almost my more neutral shade this month. This is from MUA. This is the shade Coral, and it is a deeper coral that has a lot of red undertone to it. I think it's really beautiful. This is another one that I was using almost just as a neutral shade, which seems kind of funny to look at it. This is a tinted lip oil from e.l.f. in Berry Kiss. But when you put this on and shear it out, it really does make this really pretty light berry wash on the lips that is really pretty, but like I said, a little bit more neutral. And so that is something I reached for quite a lot this month. I also was using this Revlon Kiss Balm in Crisp Apple as kind of my other just everyday sort of nude shade. It's just a light reddish wash in a balm form. And then the other balm type product I had was from Julep. This is the shade Crimson. It's sheer, but it still is a little more brightly red than the Revlon Balm Kiss over there. And then I had this CoverGirl Melting Pout Vinyl Wow. This one is a little bit more of a rosy coral shade. This is a lovely formula, so freaking comfortable and so pigmented. Really one of the best lip formulas I think CoverGirl has put out recently. And then we got into a couple of liquid lipstick type things back here. This is from Milani. This is their Amore Shine lip cream. This one has started to go off. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's like orange at the bottom and red inside. And the more I sniffed it, the more I realized that it just didn't smell right. So I made the decision not to use that, and I'm just gonna chuck it now. This is a shade that I forgot to wear. If I'm being honest, this is from CoverGirl. This is the Melting Pout Metallics in the shade Mayhem. It is sort of a orangey brown pumpkin spice metallic, and I think it's really pretty. And we're getting a little bit more into fall now, and I think I'm actually going to leave this in the drawer for this next month because I would like to play with this a little bit more. This is from Lancome. This is the L'Absolu Lacquer in the shade 492. This one is deeper and more of a berry vampy shade, and it's a really lovely formula. I wore this in a video. I can't remember which one. I'll leave a screenshot here. But it's a really nice brownish berry that I think looks really, I think I will really enjoy this one for fall as well. So I do want to remember to pull this in as I start getting into more fall type makeup. And then this is the shade Impossible Red from NARS Velvet Lip Glide. It's almost a neon red, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. This is also a formula that can be easily sheared out because it is sort of it's a weird gel hybrid stain kind of thing. Stain's not the right word. It doesn't really stain, but it's like this gel liquid lipstick hybrid that is really flattering on the lips. And then finally, this is the shade Suspiria from Kat Von D. This one actually slipped at the very back of the drawer, and I completely missed ever wearing it this month. So it's this really fun purple, and I think I may make the decision to go ahead and leave this in as well because I do like the shade, and I didn't reach for it at all this month because, like I said, it slid behind. So I think those two will stay in, but that kind of wraps us up here. I now have a very empty looking drawer going on here with lots of opportunity to fill it up. So I will go ahead, clean out the drawer, put everything away, and then in my next video, we will be doing my Shop My Stash for the month of September.